Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it, and also with food, and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and today I'm talking to Jen P. Higgins, who talks about her family's reasons for reducing sugar, especially for her sons, but also for herself. And just before our chat, I'd like to invite you over to my website, aftersugarclub.com, to go and download your simple guide to getting more energy with less sugar, and also to surf around a bit and have a look at the free videos there and all the resources to learn about how you can reduce sugar and add more fermented probiotic foods to your diet to look after your gut health. So that's aftersugarclub.com. And come on over to my Facebook page, Life After Sugar, to say hi, and to my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar if you want to see the kinds of foods that I eat. Okay, here's my chat with Jen. Okay, Jen, great to talk to you. Where are you calling from?
I am in Tennessee, Knoxville, in East Tennessee.
Cool. All right. So tell me a little bit about your relationship with sugar and what your life looked like when you were still consuming a lot of sugar.
Well, just like most people, I would think, I didn't really know that I had a relationship with sugar. We don't realize it until the relationship goes toxic. And it actually really started with my son. So when my son was 4, actually before he was 4, he was showing signs of autism. And there was a really long waiting list to actually get into a specialist for him to be diagnosed. And so we just kind of said, well, let's just say he is. And what would we do if he is? And at that time, this was back in 2007. So not only was autism not as understood as it is today, as far as awareness goes, but it also was a time when people didn't really understand what gluten was. And so when a friend of mine said, you know what, you should take gluten out of his diet. And I was like, what? What is gluten? That sounds weird. And so I started researching it from there. And I was like, okay, well, this has gluten, this has gluten. We just took everything out of the cabinet because at the time he was almost 4, he's 3.5. At the time, it would be a lot easier if we just took all the gluten out of the house and we all went on this gluten-free diet. And 6 weeks after we took gluten out of his diet, he said his first complete sentence.
Wow. And he hadn't talked before? He had speech delays before that?
He had speech delays and he did talk. So that was why we weren't sure that he had autism. But in retrospect, we recognized that it was really echolalia. So he was just repeating things, or, you know how when you get a commercial in your head or somebody says something and then you reply with a movie quote.
You do that?
I do that. You don't do that?
I don't do that.
Well, our family does apparently. And we just thought it was cute because it was what we do. We speak in movie quotes. And so when he was speaking in PBS quotes or whatever, Nickelodeon quotes, whatever he was watching at the time, Wiggles, I think that's what he was watching. We just thought it was cute. We're like, oh, he's such our child. He's so much of our child. But then we realized when we started seeing behavior issues, we realized that he really wasn't communicating. He was talking, but he wasn't communicating. And so, as soon as we were able to take gluten out of his diet, he started being able to communicate.
Amazing. And can I just ask, because I'm, pretty ignorant about autism, who made that connection between gluten and his autism?
It was my housekeeper at the time.
Your housekeeper?
My housekeeper.
I thought you said your health keeper. No, your housekeeper.
It was my housekeeper at the time. She happened to be somebody there that I could talk to because I was so overwhelmed and I needed to talk to someone, and she happened to be there. So I was just saying, well, we just got this possible diagnosis, and I think I was reading a book, and she said, "Oh, that's a really interesting book." And then when I told her about the possible diagnosis, she's like, I have a friend. I think it was a friend, maybe it was a family member, somebody that she knew that was diagnosed with autism. And this was a diet that really helped her, helped them. And we also ended up, of course, casein is the other big one. But not really on the autism side, but at the time, I also had a toddler who was very, very active, and people were saying he needed to. I mean, you don't medicate someone that age, but they were just like, "Oh, he's gonna be a handful," um, and we took gluten out of his diet. And we took sugar out because sugar is what people makes people hyper, right? But we didn't really recognize it. So I think this is the aha that you're wanting me to come to.
Mhm.
We didn't really recognize it until my husband and I had the opportunity to go on a date. And we went to this pizzeria and had pizzas. Like, oh my gosh, we haven't had bread in so long. I think we had sodas because we don't keep sodas at the house. It's like we had soda or sweet tea. I don't know. We just really indulged. And the following day, I slept for 16 hours.
Ooh. And
And
was it like good sleep or was it knocked out sleep?
it was knocked out, drunk, hangover kind of sleep. Like, I was cranky, I was irritable, I could not hold my eyes open. And we do call it a gluten hangover now if we accidentally come into contact with gluten. I wouldn't say that we're celiac. We haven't been, maybe we are, I don't know. We haven't been diagnosed. But it's amazing how much it will affect my ability to think and to just be present. That it's easier for me to just sleep than it is for me to function.
Amazing, amazing. And I just want to come back to this diagnosis that you got for your son. At any time during that whole process of him being diagnosed, did anyone in the medical community mention sugar or gluten?
Well, we were in the process of, I'm thinking out loud. We were in a holding period before we actually got to see a professional. And by the time we got to see a professional, we were already seeing the results from taking gluten out of his diet. So we were already sold on it before we actually got to see a professional.
And did the professional mention it?
I think the psychiatrist did,
Mm-hmm.
but not the neurologist.
Okay. Okay. So thanks to your cleaning lady, is that what you call it down there?
Yeah, my housekeeper.
Your housekeeper. I don't know. We speak the same language, but not quite. um, so thanks to her, you kind of started to look deeper into this issue of gluten. Are you all gluten-free now, the four of you?
We are, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it difficult to live like that?
No. Not as it was back in 2007 when there wasn't as many products that were available to have substitutes. But now there are substitutes for the things that we really like. If we have I don't want to say crave because we don't really have cravings, or I don't. My kids do, but um, it's more like we just miss something. Like we miss donuts, so let's find a gluten-free recipe for donuts. But me personally, I like it better when I'm just eating a salad, or if I'm just eating. I don't know if you know about these trends now. There's a nature cereal trend. Have you heard of that?
No, no, I'm too far north for all that stuff.
So there's a nature's cereal trend where it's just fruit and coconut water and you eat it in a bowl like you would be eating soup. And I posted on social media yesterday my nature's tacos where we just cut up in a boat pepper and stuffed it with what you would put in a taco and then ate it like that. And there's
Oh, yeah.
no bread in there whatsoever, no
That's
grain.
one of our favorite meals. I didn't even know I was in vogue until you just
There
told
you
me.
go. Now I dub that nature's tacos, so uh, it may already be a thing.
I don't know, but it sounds good to me. So now, how old are your sons now?
They are almost 16 and almost 18.
Wow. Okay. So do you consider that their diet has been like instrumental in their well-being growing up?
Absolutely. They are very fit. They are they their metabolism is appropriate for their age. And so I don't want to say that they're fit. It's just they can burn calories and they can eat calories efficiently. Um, and I see so many people that their age that can't. And maybe they're struggling a little bit more with in school. And neither of mine are. We homeschooled for many years. And when they became high schoolers, they joined a STEM school that's locally, and both of them are doing very well in that environment and not having any problems with grades or anything like that. And it makes it sound like it's easy. No, I have I have a child with autism, and I also have a child with severe um, SPD, sensory processing disorder, and ADHD. And so homeschooling them was not an easy feat.
I
But
imagine.
I will say that what I'm grateful for is that I was able to control their diet because they were at home, because I was homeschooling them. And their first couple of years before the pandemic, when they were at public school, they made their own lunch and brought it to lunch. So they did not eat the school food. This year, they have actually opened up the school cafeteria for free meals for everybody. And so
Okay.
now they have been eating, but now they're trained. They know what they can eat and what they can't eat. And they also know that if they eat too much of insert sugary item here, that they're going to pay for it. And so and at the age that they are now, I mean, I'm glad that they're able to discern that for themselves, even if they are making a poor choice in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, and we all do sometimes, you know? Yeah, and that's kind of the flip side of having free choice. So, and it's great because, you know, a diagnosis of autism, ADHD, all these kinds of things, no parent wants to hear that. And yet you've turned it around and made it into something positive, from what I can tell.
I will say that I couldn't imagine if I hadn't been as diligent and strict about their diets. I think it would have been a lot harder on me, way harder than me, to be able to homeschool them as long as I did, and even trust that they're making good good decisions, or at least understanding the connection between how they're feeling and what they ate.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's very powerful, and something, you know, that they were able to get thanks to you at a young age. But for me, I mean, it took until my mid 40s to get that connection.
Yeah.
Mm. So way to go, mom.
I have so my older son is the one with the autism diagnosis. He'll come up to me and he goes, "Mom, I have a headache and I've already had lunch, and I drank some water, and I'm not sure what else it is. And so he kinda knows that there's this checklist before he comes to me, which is very I think is very empowering for him, especially for someone who struggles with communication, that I've been able to give him this checklist to go through and now go advocate for yourself. And, so now we're recognizing that it's too much computer time because of the pandemic, and it's a posture issue, and so now we have exercises for him to do to help realign his spine so that the headache will go away.
Amazing. Fantastic.
But the
Great.
first thing he thinks of is, what did I eat? What did I eat? And do I have enough water in my body?
Fantastic. Yeah, really. And so for you personally, did you bring down, like you're all gluten free, but did you bring down your level of sugar as well?
Yeah, mainly because you mean like just reduce my intake of sugar? Is that
Yeah.
what you're asking? Yeah, I did because it makes me feel bad. So some of the things that I notice when I have too much sugar is my skin gets drier. My skin gets itchier and drier, and I also notice that I have more cramps, more hot flashes. These are some of the things that I've been recognizing. See, at the end of the quarter last year, because during the pandemic, because a year ago, we didn't think this pandemic was going to last that long, right? And so we're like, oh, we're going to have some extra family time. And every week we would do a family movie night. And we decided to add this new twist to it. We're going to treat ourselves because pandemics suck, and we're going to have some ice cream. And we're going to take turns picking out the ice cream, fully thinking that, 2 months we can revert back to the way we normally eat. Well, that didn't quite turn out the way we planned. And next thing you know it, I'm feeling very addicted to ice cream. And it's not even that I was eating ice cream every night, it was just eating ice cream once a week, but it was regular.
Yeah.
And because our bodies understand the regularity of something, it's almost better for us to do something sporadically than to do something regularly. So I was regularly feeding my body ice cream every Friday night, and my body stopped going into homeostasis. My body started saying, this must be the new normal.
Hmm.
And so then, because it became a new normal, my hormones started protesting. My scalp started protesting, and I recognized, okay, so the only thing that I've changed is ice cream on Friday night. It's no longer a simple indulgence that it's not like I'm having ice cream every single day, but I was still doing it regularly and my body couldn't tell the difference. And
And then,
so
so
I've cut it
how,
out.
yeah, and then it's easy to say, so then I cut it out, but like, how do you do that?
Well, I took advantage of Lent. and but that sounds very sacrilegious, doesn't it? But I said, okay, I'm gonna give it up, and it was just an easy way for me to kind of program my mind that here's something that I can do for a good reason, and it is for my body, which is something that God gave me that I should take care of. And so that's what I did. And did I ask my family to give up ice cream? I didn't, because it was for me. I was the one having the hot flashes. They weren't. And so I gave up the ice cream for me. And they were actually, at first, they were like, oh, more for me. But then they started saying, are you sure? Like, it's so good. And it wasn't in a way that they were trying to tempt me, but it was a special it was something that we did together as a family, and they felt like they were leaving me out because I wasn't participating. And sometimes, for me, who loves quality time with my family, sometimes that could be enough for me to give in, but I knew that if I didn't put up that boundary, that I was the one that was going to suffer. And then the relationship would suffer between me and my family. And so I just stuck to my guns, and I also knew because I have sugar fasted before in the past, um, that after the 3rd day, you don't really crave it anymore. So,
Wow, yeah. So you mentioned these boundaries, right? And I know that you're kind of an expert in the whole concept of setting boundaries, respecting your own needs, your own personality. So can you talk to us a bit about that?
yeah, so part of my business is I'm a personality strategist. And basically what I help people do is figure out who they are so that they can align their businesses with and their content if they're teachers or community leaders, whatever that, however they support the community, align that with yourself first, and then you'll be a more effective leader.
Love
And
that.
so we start with this idea of personality and who you are. And I've used lots of tools. I've used Myers Briggs, I've used DISC, the Big Five, but the one that I have landed on primarily is the Enneagram. And the reason because is I believe that the Enneagram's higher purpose is community because it's 9 perspectives of different types of people. It's just 9 perspectives of the world. Now, are there only 9 types of people? Of course not. There's not, but it's a good framework to help us understand how other people think and how other people are motivated and how they emotionally react to certain fears. And so, what I do is I help people learn who they are so that once you know who you are, you also know who you aren't.
Love that.
And it's so much easier to put up boundaries when you have those clear delineations.
Yeah, definitely. And in a previous podcast episode, I was talking about being a moderator or being an abstainer and kind of recognizing that in yourself so that when you do decide to cut down or cut out sugar, it aligns with your personality that you had even when you were eating sugar. And so, some people are like, well, how do you keep it up long term? Well, for me personally, it's because the way that I live sugar free is the way that I lived my whole life. It aligns with my personality. But I didn't know I was an abstainer until I had something to abstain.
Very, very true. And it's kind of like what I say when people think that personality is just a fun thing to know, instead of the thing to know, because people don't want to be put into a box. They do, but they don't. They want to know what Harry Potter house they're in, what Hogwarts house they're in, and they want to know what Disney princess they are. But then that's just fun. Then, oh well, let's move on. But what the Enneagram shows us is that we're already in a box. And that's why I call it. So I have a podcast also, and it's called Unbox Your Personality because we're already in a box. You just can't see it. You are already an abstainer. You just didn't know it. And
Yeah.
we can't unbox ourselves until we acknowledge that there's a box for us to unbox.
Whoa. That's pretty meta. That's pretty deep.
It's like
So,
looking into a mirror, looking into a mirror, looking into a mirror.
yeah, well, you're freaking me out. So tell us a little bit about how we can get to know our personality better if we are thinking about doing something like cutting out sugar.
hmm well, first of all, because the Enneagram is based off of your motivations instead of your behaviors, sometimes your behaviors aren't always a good, clear indication, because sometimes we make good choices and sometimes we make bad choices. So if I judged my children based off of, you ate a candy bar today, right? That doesn't make them a bad person. Okay. It just makes that was a bad, and maybe it wasn't even a bad choice. Okay. Maybe it was Snickers. So for one son, that would be a bad choice because he has a peanut allergy. But if they hadn't eaten all day and they just really needed to eat something and they had a Snickers bar, that was a good choice for that moment. And so looking at your personality, it's not about judging yourself. And In fact, the more I understand about my personality, the more grace and compassion I have for myself, and the more grace and compassion I have for other people when I realize, you know what? They're just protecting their fears and their desires. And that's what's motivating them.
Wow, yes, that's really powerful because the words that you use, like shame and guilt, and all those kinds of, so-called negative feelings,
Mhm.
they are really, really strong when we're trying to break the habit, the sugar habit, and then, we fall off the wagon, and then we blame ourselves, and then it's like, how can we step out of this kind of vicious cycle?
Yes. Yes. And and one of the things that I love about the Enneagram is that once you know which box that you live in, you can live out of it. And there's a clear path. So for those of you who are new to the Enneagram, there's a diagram that's a circle with 9 numbers around the edges, and then there are lines that connect each of the numbers. And with those numbers, there's a line, 2 lines that come out of each number. And one line is for stress and one line is for security. So once you figure out which number you are, you have these indicators of, oh, red flag, I'm under stress. Oh, I'm feeling confident. I can pat myself on the back. I don't need to change things. So sometimes we compare ourselves to other people and we think, oh, they're doing it that way, so I should do it that way. Well, if it's working for you, then you don't need to change. You don't need to compare yourself to other people. And so those two by itself is really freeing as far as understanding who you are and who you aren't. But then there's one other dimension, which is this level of awareness or a level of health, where, because sometimes when you're in stress, you can make poor choices, but you can also make good choices. You can make healthy choices. And when you're in security, likewise, you can make healthy choices, but you can also make poor choices, like when, oh, we're comfortable. So then maybe we might get lazy or complacent. We feel secure, but we're still making poor choices. And so the Enneagram just really shows you how dynamic your personality is and really makes it clear of when you're making a healthy choice in stress and insecurity, because stress is not necessarily unhealthy. Stress is going to happen regardless. We can't control that part.
Yeah, I mean, stress is part of life. It's inevitable. You can't really do anything about it. I mean, no one can control the fact that there's a pandemic and it's stressful. And it's not so much trying to control stress as trying to deal with it personally so that we deal with it more healthily
Yes.
and
And
not just add to it.
and what's interesting to note about that is that sugar actually creates a stress response in your body. It's not Now, we don't always make a cognitive connection to that, but our bodies always tell us what's going on if we pay attention to it. And so when we start paying attention to our bodies, we can see that, oh, this sugar is putting more stress on. It's not just the stress on my waistband, right? But
Mm.
there is other inflammation that's causing stress that we may not be able to feel because of there's no pain receptors there, or I'm not a anatomy or physiology feel I can't say that word. I'm not a doctor, so I can't really describe that completely, but you get it. So
Yeah, totally.
it's we don't always are aware, and so a lot of it is just building up awareness. And so understanding our personality. So for Gretchen Rubin, her personality test is are you an abstainer or are you a moderator? And that helps you know, well, if I'm an abstainer, then this is okay. If I'm a moderator, then this is okay. And can you switch? Possibly. I'm not
Yeah,
sure. I haven't read the book.
yeah. And it's like, it's for me, it was like, ah, at last, I accept myself, I understand myself, and other people's comments on how I choose to live my life, even if I'm happy and I'm, at peace with it, it helped me to deal with other people's comments. And that comes back to what you were saying about boundaries, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And here's the thing, everybody is unique. Everybody's story is unique. If you ask anybody, if you had 10 people in the room and you asked them, "Hey, what was your childhood like?" You would get 10 different stories. Some of them might be similar, but they're still going to be different. So, why do we assume that people's present and future are going to look just like ours? It's
Mm.
not. And so, a lot of times that's what kind of shoots us in the foot whenever we get triggered by other people's opinions. It's their truth. You have your truth, they have their truth, and it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just a different perspective.
Yeah, and that just for me, it calmed me down. I didn't feel like I had to respond or get on the defensive or that I was being judged, or rather, if they were judging me, that's their thing. It's nothing to do with me
Right.
as an individual. And that just took a weight off my shoulders.
Yeah. And personality will bring to your attention that everything that we do gets filtered through that personality. I call it a personality paintbrush,
Mm.
that we paint our world, we paint our reality through the lens of our personality. And so until we can give form to what that is, that box that we don't want to be put in, we can't open the box. All we can see is the box. I use a little Lego demonstration with a little window through. We're in a box, but we actually are peeking through this window, and see how our vision is obstructed on the other sides of the box, because we're only looking through one side of the box. And what we really need to do is get out of the box and climb this ladder out of the box. And that's what working with your personality actually helps you with. We actually form a strategy of, okay, what motivates me and how do I get aligned with that? And it would be a little bit like I think it would be a fun exercise. Actually, we don't have to do it today, but it would be a fun exercise to actually look at the Enneagram types and see which ones tend to be abstainers and which ones tend to be moderators.
Yeah, that would be fascinating. Definitely. Fascinating.
Right
All
about.
right. Okay, Jen. So if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, I am online. My handle is at Power Coach Jen on Facebook and Instagram. And that's also my website, powercoachjen.com.
And you're writing a book as well, right?
I am writing a book. So if you are interested in personality and why you do the things that you do, I am an Enneagram expert and I help people incorporate that into their businesses. But this book is more for the beginner to intermediate Enneagram fans. So even if you're just curious about the Enneagram, you'll love this. I talk about personality and what the difference between your personality and your Enneagram type, and the easier way to type yourself so you don't have to take a test. Tests usually put us in boxes. And isn't that what we're talking about? Like, just let me be me and you be you, right? And
Right.
so instead of taking a test, this book will really help you understand like the primal functions of your brain and why you do the things that you do on an unconscious level that develop your personality, and what you can do on a daily basis to help you reset and rebalance that so you can make better, healthier choices.
So when's your book going to be released?
It's going to be released on September 20th, and you can get all the details by following me on my Instagram or Facebook at Power Coach Jen.
Fantastic. Can't wait to read it.
Thank you. I'm excited about it.
Thanks, Jen. Really interesting what you teach and your area of expertise and how we can apply it to breaking free from sugar. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you. This was fun.
What an inspiring conversation with Jen. And we're really on the same wavelength because in the Life After Sugar approach, we go according to your personality. And that's what I found for myself as well, that living free from sugar over the last 6 years has nothing to do with willpower or self-control or anything like that, because I live my sugar-free life according to my personality, and I encourage you to do the same in the Life After Sugar program. If you want more information, head on over to my website aftersugarclub.com and click on the button Join the Program to learn more about the Life After Sugar program. And if you've enjoyed this episode, scroll down and leave me a review. I love reading your reviews. Thanks for listening. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.